we getting any comments that this
Fixed it.
fixed it? There we go. Thanks, guys. Sorry. Um, I don't know what's going on there. Anyways, so that like there are health issues that he still has to this day associated with that. In addition to that, though, he wrote a book where he's very open about infidelity, having cheated on Khloe Kardashian, the sex and porn addiction that he has, as well as struggles with substance abuse over the years. So, I thought going in he was going to be open to getting into that, which he was. However, there was some hesitation on some of the topics because he said he's actually really embarrassed by some of what he wrote in his book. So, fascinating guy. Thrilled we did it. Thankful for the opportunity to have had profiled him. But it was there were some challenges in covering some of the topics, certainly.
So did you get to dunk on Lamar?
Did I get to dunk on Lamar? No, I did not get to dunk on Lamar. I'm 5'10", and I have no ups or any athletic ability, as anybody who watches the shows probably heard me say repeatedly.
What do you remember? This person asked, "What do you remember about your Kobe interview?"
You know, a few things, and I don't know if you saw, we put together a Kobe Bryant tribute episode that aired this past weekend on television, and we also posted the full episode on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I sat down with him in 2012, and one of my favorite interviews I've ever done for a number of reasons. First, I think what's unique about Kobe relative to a lot of other top athletes is he is exceptionally smart and interested in so much outside of basketball that the conversations just really engaging, especially off camera, before and after. Second, unlike also a lot of people, he is brutally honest and unconcerned about sharing his opinion and the potential repercussions of doing so. So, as an interviewer, that's always a treat. Lastly, when I talked to him, I really wanted to ask him about the criminal trial and Eagle, or the criminal charges in Eagle, Colorado, and the impact that the dismissed sexual assault charges had on him. He really hadn't talked about that ever before. I thought it was unlikely he would get into it, but it was a part of his life. And in any of these tapings, as you guys see when you watch our content, we try and appropriately profile whoever we're interviewing. And I like talking to the person about their positive experiences, their negative experiences, and what they've learned. I think that's what the show is. And, to my surprise, I led into it with an interview that we had done with Ray Lewis, and him talking about how the criminal challenges he went through, how that had a positive impact on his life, and led into it with that. And to my surprise, Kobe ended up sharing a decent amount, and I think his willingness to engage on that topic, as well as the just willingness to share a lot on many other topics, has always made that an interview I look back on fondly. Not to mention, he's one of the most accomplished athletes ever, and just the fact that he's willing to sit down with you and give you that kind of time. I think we sat down for an hour and a half interview. You feel like you've made it as an interviewer, just having the chance to be in a room with a guy like that. So, yeah, it was a treat and one I will always remember.
Michael Johnson on Facebook asked what were the embarrassing things Lamar said were in his book.
What were the embarrassing things Lamar said were in his book? Oh, okay. One of the things that I think he, I mean, there were so many things. I think, he was. I don't know if he regrets saying anything. I mean, I think, says he regrets having shared so much in his book, but, I think as a fan of his, you appreciate somebody being, transparent. And so, one of the things that I think Lamar wishes he hadn't put in there was the extent to which he went about to cheat the drug tests. So to compete in I think it was the '04 Olympics, he actually used a prosthetic penis because he had in fact done drugs and wanted to still be able to compete in the games. On another occasion, he faked a family emergency and hopped on a private jet to fly cross country to avoid a drug test. So I think those are a couple of examples of things that he might now be thinking twice about having put in there. But again, I think most people that read it appreciate his transparency.
So Rumble Mid GG on YouTube wants to know what was something you know about Kobe that most people might not and would think was cool.
Oh gosh, I mean, I think over the past few weeks, most people have learned a lot of about Kobe, and so there's probably not much I can add to that. I will say, I remember when I was preparing for the interview, I was unfamiliar with the significance that Italy has played in his life. I also, you always hear about the work ethic of top athletes, but you never quite realize if they're in fact the first one there and the last one to leave. And what was evident with Kobe in preparing for that, as even Lamar Odom spoke to, is that was true completely. First one in, last one to leave. He might have been talented, but he did whatever he could to maximize his potential.
You've really.
And again, we're taking your questions, so continue to send them in. Again, I so appreciate you guys watching our content on YouTube, Facebook, or TV, or wherever you watch. And if you like us doing these, we'll keep doing them. Also, if you have guest suggestions for people that you're interested in us profiling for upcoming episodes, I mentioned, haven't revealed who, you'll see soon enough, but I mentioned we're going to Europe here in a couple weeks, and you guys suggested that person on our last Facebook and YouTube live. So I really appreciate it and value the suggestions. So you can comment on Facebook or YouTube with suggestions. You can also email me, graham@grahambensinger.com. But again, we're taking your questions, and what's up next?
So someone wants to know how you got into interviewing sports celebrities.
How I got into interviewing sports celebrities. So I actually, I'm 33. I started as, and sorry if I'm boring you, some of you who've heard this before, but I started when I was in 8th grade, 14 years old, with an internet radio show, or at least that's what I called it. It was really a website that I created that served as an archival home for audio interviews that I would do. I live in St. Louis, born and raised, still live here today, and this is where our office is. But I used to be one of these kids who'd run down to the ballpark to wait for players, Cardinals baseball players, to get their autographs at Busch Stadium. This is elementary school, first couple of years of middle school. And what I realized after a while wasn't the autographs I liked getting, but just meeting the players, engaging them in conversation, hearing their stories. And so I just thought, what the heck? Let's see if I can figure out another way to have these conversations with players, because I didn't really care about the autographs. And I went to the local library, looked up home addresses for professional and retired baseball players, and just sent out letters, snail mail, explaining the concept for this internet radio show I wanted to start. And to my surprise, after a little bit of time, I got calls back from people. This is eighth grade, didn't even have a cell phone at the time. They'd call my parents' house. My mom or dad would answer and yell to me saying, Ernie Banks is on the phone, or Bob Feller, or Tim McCarver, or Will Clark. Those were a few of my early interviews, and developed a show on the internet over the following couple of years, then got on a local radio station in St. Louis midway through high school. My last year of high school, I actually was buying my time on the local St. Louis radio station, then going out to local companies, pitching them to advertise in the show to fund the show, since I was having to, spend money to buy the time. And so that was kind of how it started, and did work for ESPN for a few years after that, NBC for a year after that. And then we ended up deciding to create our own show because, one, I wanted editorial control, but two, also didn't hurt that I got laid off at the height of the financial crisis. But two, I always struggled with the fact that, as I've shared before, I would do these hour-long sit-down interviews with prominent athletic figures, but then only 30 seconds or a minute of the most controversial stuff from the interview would be what actually aired. And I felt like, almost to no fault of my own, I was putting, or actually, I was responsible for putting people I was interviewing in a situation where I couldn't fairly tell their stories. And I realized if I didn't find a solution to that, there was going to be a limitation on my ability to keep getting access. And so that was kind of what provided me with the early incentive to create this show. And, we go out, get our own advertisers. We put the show together in-house. So our team films it, edits it, produces it, signs on the outlets that carry it. So we have a small team of like 12 or so folks, most of whom are here in St. Louis. Everybody, busts their what putting this show together, because if budgets permitted, we could probably have a staff size easily double the number of people we currently do. So we're in season 10, but the hope is that we'll continue growing season over season. And Elise is telling me to wrap up. I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
Hey Graham, Manuel on YouTube, he wants to know, did you play any sports? College, high school, professional, pee-wee?
Did I play any sports? Yes, but not well, as is evident. I played JV baseball 2 years in high school. I played water polo for a year, cross country for a year, both the early days of high school. And outside of that, I played I played C team basketball in sixth grade. Actually, good story on that front. We featured J.J. Watt for an episode not too long ago, who did a great job hosting Saturday Night Live, Super Bowl weekend, by the way. His agent, John Kaplan, was my sixth grade basketball C team coach. So he was a couple of years above me in a school, and that was how we got J.J. Watt for an episode taping.
Natasha on Facebook wants to know how close you got to the Lions when you went to South Africa.
Too close for comfort, certainly, but if you've ever had the opportunity to be on a safari before, it is surprising how close you get to very dangerous animals in the wild, and they're used to seeing vehicles with people in them. So as long as you're in the vehicle, you're safe. The challenge is, if you get out of the vehicle, then you get in trouble. But what was most amazing about featuring Kevin Richardson, the Lion Whisperer, for an episode is just this unique bond he's developed with these animals that he rescued from what was otherwise a certain slaughter through canned hunting, because there are these basically petting zoos in South Africa that breed baby cubs so people can come in and pet them, but then they get too big. And when they get too big, they send them off to areas that are in small enclosures where then Western tourists come in and, kill them. But it's not even hunting because these animals have no ability to escape. So it was Kevin Richardson is doing a really good job of shedding light on that, and we were hopeful through the episode featuring him that we could, show that. The one time, though, we really got close to animals, if you get a chance to look through, on our YouTube or Facebook, but we have all the clips on YouTube, our Paul Nicklin episode, one of the best National Geographic photographers. We were with him trekking the rare spirit bear, which is basically an albino black bear off the coast of British Columbia at a place called Hartley Bay. So in that situation, we really got close to the bears, like arm's reach, not in a vehicle. And so if you get a chance, check that out. That one, you really, you're feeling your heart pounding.
So, Graham, on YouTube, we have the question, what do you do in your free time?
What do I do in my free time? Probably not much. I think I'm pretty boring generally, as Elisa and Ashton, both of whom are watching this so kindly, pretty regularly point out. But, we're lucky through the show to travel to places all around the world. I mean, we've, been everywhere from, saw somebody comment about Alaska. We've been everywhere from Alaska with 4-time Iditarod champ Lance Mackey to, China for Yao Ming and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and New Zealand for Tigers ex-caddy Steve Williams, and the Congo for Dikembe Mutombo, the Philippines for Manny Pacquiao, and we were just in India a couple months back for Virat Kohli. So oftentimes when we're at these places, if I can take a day or two, I'll try and do something fun after the taping. In addition to that, I like to hike a lot, so try and get to places where I can do that as well.
Michael Johnson on Facebook wants to know what your best memory is from any interview you've done.
Michael Johnson, my best memory from any interview we've ever done. What? Oh, she's giving.
No.
Does this mean I'm boring you?
No, I was saying it was a good question.
Oh, okay, got it. So, I mean, I've also told this one before, but I mean, one of my all-time favorite experiences is booking, Sir Richard Branson for an episode of the show. And that was, I'd been working on it for 5 years, had not made any progress. I was in Europe for work and, had a couple days to kill. He has these lodges all over the world that people can stay at. And so I spent a couple days at his lodge in North Africa, which is about an hour and a half outside of Marrakesh in the Atlas Mountains. And my reasoning for staying there was, man, I've been bugging these people forever trying to get him. At least now when I follow up, I could say, by the way, I stayed at Sir Richard's, hotel in North Africa. To my surprise, the first day I'm there, walking back from breakfast, and there he is sprawled out on a lounge chair, messing around on his iPad. My heart again is pounding. I'm thinking this is my chance. I've been bugging this guy's people for 5 years. I might as well just go up to him. And go up, introduce myself. He invites me to play chess with him, tennis with him, dinner and drinks with him and his personal assistant that night. And then a month later, we spent the better portion of a week with him in the Bahamas taping an episode of the show. And so that's one of those experiences I'll never forget because it was so random. Never in a million years did I think I would have the opportunity to get the sort of access to him through a show taping as we had, but it worked out well, and him and his people are just fantastic to deal with. So if you get a chance, that's on YouTube as well. But and then when we have the chance again to go to some of the international places, those are always fun. I will say this though, one experience that ended poorly, despite it being a great taping and us having a blast there, was when we went to India for the world's best cricket player, Virat Kohli. On the way back, somehow, as so many others have, I got a parasite and didn't hit me, luckily, till we landed back in the States. Definitely lucked out on that front. But yeah, when I got home, I lost 10 pounds in 2 days. So would highly recommend a parasite if you're ever trying to go on a diet.
So MZ on YouTube wants to know what your favorite type of fruit is.
My favorite type of fruit?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I try and eat generally healthy. It's one thing I have found is the more I travel, the more difficult it is to be healthy because oftentimes they're really early mornings, really late nights, and you're on a plane sometimes every night. So, I mean, I'm just making excuses for sure, but I have found during the periods I travel a lot, I have more difficulty staying healthy. So that is a 2020 New Year's resolution of mine to prioritize eating well and exercise while traveling.
Jonathan Layfield on Facebook noticed the piece of artwork that's hanging behind you and wanted to know if you had a favorite photographer or artist or any visual medium that you like.
I don't know enough about photography or art to have a favorite photographer or artist. I will say though, Muhammad Ali, who's back there in that iconic photo, was my dad's all-time favorite athlete, and always talked about him when I was growing up, and that's just an image that I so love. And actually, one of the first events I ever covered, I went to the ESPY Awards in Los Angeles when I was in high school. I had saved up some money, and to my surprise, the ESPY Awards granted me a press credential, and it just so happened to be a year that Muhammad Ali was attending the ESPY Awards. And at that time, the Parkinson's had really progressed. He could barely speak. It was very difficult to understand. So he was not doing any media, understandably. And he's slowly walking down the red carpet, and I'm just some teenage high school kid at the time, with probably no sense of political correctness. And so I just start screaming, "Mr. Ali, Mr. Ali, Mr. Ali." And he turns and just starts slowly walking over to me. And, all of a sudden, everybody that is there, is like staring at me as he just slowly walks over. And he ended up answering 3 or 4 questions that I asked that was just on audio for my then internet radio show, but it was such an amazing experience. And there's this one photo I have with that my mom, who was there as my photographer, that she took of me with my little internet radio show mic flag saying G Sport Radio, G for Graham. There's just one image that I have of me interviewing Ali that is one of my favorite all-time pictures of anything I've ever done.
So Alan on YouTube wants to know how you choose the interviews that you do.
How we choose the interviews that we do. Well, first, full transparency. There's the reality of who we want, and I'm sorry, there is who we want, and then the reality of who we can get. While we're fortunate to have had the opportunity to sit down with many of the top athletes and an increasing number of big time business people and celebrities, it's challenging to get access to these people. Many times it takes, we're lucky if it takes months. Oftentimes it takes years. And so, if we were just looking for 5 or 10 minutes with the people that we're profiling, it would be a lot easier to get the access. But because we're asking for anywhere from a few hours to a few days, it becomes a much longer conversation with their reps because it's access they generally don't provide. And when you're dealing with super busy, super successful people, it becomes more difficult for them to put that sort of time commitment on their calendar.
So what's one of the common factors between all of these successful people that you meet or try to meet?
And just unrelenting work ethic, ambition, and also, I don't know if this is everybody, because we've interviewed some comedians who, famously lack this, but for the most part, there's just this underlying self-belief and confidence that, they thought they could do it. And, the majority of the people that we featured come from nothing. There's no nepotism, there's no, rich parent. They come from nothing. And it was just their belief in themselves. Some had the benefit of, strong parental figures who instilled it in them, others didn't. But yeah, self-belief is a big thing, confidence, but certainly work ethic and ambition. And it's also like, it's really motivating. I pinch myself all the time having the opportunity to sit down with some of these people because, I feel like I have no business sitting in the room with them. And, either they're best athletes or multi-billionaires or whatever. And, I'm sitting down with them, like asking them whatever I want about their life. And it's just such a great learning experience for me too, and I find it very motivating and inspiring to just hear these people talk about their stories.
So Rodney Bonilla on Facebook wants to know if there was ever an interview that made you emotional and you had to pause and take a break.
There have been a couple. One that actually strangely comes to mind because I just saw him in Pebble Beach at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Got to give credit to a sponsor. Larry the Cable Guy. He was actually another one of my favorite interviews, and just such a genuinely nice guy who's fantastic to fans. And I didn't really know anything about his story coming into it before I started the research, other than he's a self-made guy. And this clip is on YouTube. You can Google Larry the Cable Guy Pixar and my name, and it'll come up. But he just talked about the moment that he made it. Like, he knew he made it after the long hours on the road and being away from the family and never really making much money for the longest time. Pixar offered him a part in one of their movies, and he didn't have to audition. And I have goosebumps talking about it right now. that was just his moment, and that was when he just knew he made it, and he just broke down telling the story, and you can just understand it, and you get in that instance what he's talking about. And I remember, yeah, my eyes tearing up just like his were.
If someone were to interview you, what question would you like them to ask you? This one?
What
Yeah.
I I don't know. I man, I no, I don't know. If I'm ever in a position to have half the success that these people that we profile do, then maybe that's the time for me to be interviewed.
Chow Chow on YouTube wants to know if we're planning to interview any international sports figures like Yao Ming in the future.
So we've interviewed Yao Ming on a couple of occasions before. Actually, I think we had the first interview with him right when he retired from the NBA. We traveled to Shanghai for that, and then we went back to Shanghai for an interview with him right before he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. So Yao's been great. There are people that arguably have fame that is greater than Yao's, but what I think is uniquely challenging for him is because of his size. Tom Cruise is really famous, David Beckham's really famous, but if they want to go incognito, they could put a hat on, wrap around shades, and probably go unnoticed walking around the streets. Yao Ming can't, do that, and so he is very much kind of a prisoner in his own home. And while he's been fabulously successful and rightly incredibly wealthy from his success, you feel for the guy that there's no regaining that anonymity. And I remember him saying, he just wishes some days he could, walk down the street in Shanghai with, his wife and kids.
Brad Bell on Facebook wants to know if you could interview anyone right now, dead or alive, who would it be?
Anyone dead or alive, who would it be? Well, I'll give the living ones. Some that immediately come to mind: Lance Armstrong, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, a sitting president or leader of any country for that matter. We've done Prince Albert, but I'd like to continue to do that. I find those worlds to be fascinating, and there are a lot of interesting figures, globally on that front. So yeah, sitting president, and then a number of athletes. Lance did talk about me on his podcast a year or two ago, and I thought, oh, this is great. I've wanted him for a long time. I'll reach out and see if he'll do it. And not yet. So maybe one of these days. Thank you guys for taking the time to tune in and watch this. Again, I so appreciate the time investment that you guys make in watching our content. It's the reason why we have the opportunity to do this. As mentioned, if you guys do have guest suggestions, either comment here or send me an email with them, graham@grahambensinger.com. We do look at them, and we do have a weekly guest booking meeting where we're talking about ideas. So would love the suggestions. If you get a chance, follow us on social, ring the bell on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Again, the show airs weekly on TV, so check our website, grahambensinger.com, for TV listings. And thank you guys again for all the support. If you're interested in us continuing to do these, we'll keep doing them. And on YouTube, apologies again for the audio issues. That is the reason Ashton, our executive producer, so kindly came over and gave me these. So that all being said, thank you guys. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you later.